Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever met someone who lit up the room just by walking in? Someone whose presence felt like warmth, clarity, and peace. Now, flip that. Have you ever met someone whose departure felt like a sigh of relief? If you've lived long enough, you've seen both. Let's be honest. Not every woman who smiles at you has good intentions. Not every beautiful face or sweet voice means safety, connection, or love. So connections build you up, others drain you slowly, quietly, until one day you wake up feeling like a stranger to yourself. In this video, it's not about bitterness. It's not about blame. It's about clarity. It's about protecting your time, your energy, your peace of mind. Because here's the hard truth most men never get taught. Some women, despite the charm, the looks, the laughter, not meant to be in your life. And the sooner you recognize the signs, the sooner you stop giving pieces of yourself to someone who's only taking. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, the happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. I'd add this, it also depends on the company you keep. If your peace is constantly being tested, if your self-worth feels like it's being negotiated every day, it's not love. That's emotional erosion. So today, we're diving into something essential. 7 signs of a toxic woman. Not to judge, but to gain wisdom. It's to help you sharpen your instincts, honor your boundaries, and walk away, not out of anger, but from a place of quiet strength. This isn't a men versus women message. It's a reminder that discernment is a form of self-respect. That just because someone wants access to your life doesn't mean they deserve a seat at your table. You've worked too hard on yourself, on your career, on becoming better to let the wrong energy sabotage your direction. So, as we go through these signs, don't just listen with your ears. Listen with your experience, with your gut. Think about the people in your life, past and present. Who brings peace when they enter? Who brings peace when they leave? By the end of this video, my hope is simple, that you'll not only see the signs more clearly, but that you'll also give yourself permission to choose better, to stop explaining, stop justifying, stop hoping someone will change, and start living from a place of clarity. You ready? Let's begin. Let me paint a familiar picture. You meet someone new. She's open, vulnerable. She tells you stories that tug at your empathy. How her ex betrayed her. How her boss never saw her worth. How her friends turned on her for no reason. And at first, you think she's been through a lot. Maybe she just needs someone who actually cares. So, you lean in, you listen, want to help. But slowly, something starts to shift. You realize the stories never change. And in every single one, she's the victim. Every conflict, every relationship, every job, she's always the one who was wronged. And if you're not careful, you'll get cast in that same narrative, either as the hero who was expected to fix her pain, or the villain who doesn't understand her the moment you set a boundary. It's subtle at first, but over time, you start to notice the pattern. Accountability never shows up. It's always someone else's fault. And here's where it gets dangerous. If you stay too long, her emotional gravity starts to pull you in. You begin questioning yourself. You walk on eggshells. You stop sharing how you feel, because somehow the spotlight always circles back to her suffering. And this isn't compassion anymore. It's emotional manipulation wrapped in a cloak of vulnerability. Now, not saying don't support people who are hurting. We all carry wounds. But there's a difference between healing and holding on to hurt. It's an identity. The Stoics taught us. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. But the woman who constantly plays the victim refuses that power, okay? She gives it away and expects you to carry the burden. I knew a guy, let's call him Tom, solid guy. After his divorce, he met a woman like this. He admired her openness, but months in, he realized he wasn't building a partnership. He was performing, constantly trying to protect her feelings, fix her moods, and make her feel seen. no matter how irrational the situation, until one day he woke up exhausted, not from lack of sleep, but from trying to hold up someone who didn't want to stand on her own. So let me ask you, are you being pulled into someone's endless victim narrative? Are you the bad guy every time you ask for balance? Do you feel like your peace is the price of being with her? The answer is yes. It's time to step back with calm, with compassion, but also with clarity. Because real love isn't about saving someone from themselves. It's about walking with someone who's willing to grow. And if she won't own her part in the story, it's okay to close the book. You ever notice how some people just can't seem to function unless something's going wrong? Like peace makes them uncomfortable. You start dating her. At first, everything feels exciting, full of passion, chemistry, emotion. But then one day, you miss a call. You're 5 minutes late, didn't reply fast enough, and suddenly, it's a problem, not just a misunderstanding, a scene. You find yourself in an argument that came out of nowhere. You're defending yourself, explaining something that shouldn't even need explaining. Can she? She seems energized by the whole thing. See? Okay. This is the second sign of a toxic woman. She's addicted to drama, not the kind that shows up in life naturally. We all face conflict. I'm talking about the kind of drama that's manufactured. She needs tension. She craves emotional chaos, because to her, calm means boredom. And stillness is terrifying, and the dangerous part is, it's not always loud. Sometimes it's passive-aggressive silence, mood swings, cold shoulders, little emotional traps designed to stir something up. Anything, really, to prove she still has control over your emotional world. Now, here's where it gets tricky. If you're a grounded man, a good man, you'll want to help. You'll want to figure out what's wrong, calm her down, fix the vibe. But by doing that, you're playing right into her hands. You become an actor in her play. And guess what? You didn't write the script. You're just reacting to it. Seneca once said, an angry man opens his mouth and shuts his eyes. And I'd argue that a person addicted to drama does the same thing. They're not seeking truth, okay? They're seeking stimulation. They want to feel something, even if it means tearing everything apart to do it. Here's what you have to remember. You're not responsible for managing someone else's emotional weather. She storms every time the air gets too still. That's her climate to fix, not yours to forecast. Stoic wisdom tells us, don't get swept up in other people's chaos. Step back, breathe, observe. You don't have to fight. You don't have to fix, and you don't have to play the part. Sometimes the strongest move isn't confrontation, it's silence. Sometimes the smartest thing you can say is nothing at all. A peaceful man in a stormy relationship doesn't need to shout. He just needs to walk away before the storm becomes his. So ask yourself this, do you feel like you're always calming the waves, but never reaching the shore? If so, it's time to stop swimming in someone else's storm. Start walking toward your own stillness. Have you ever said no to someone and then felt like the worst person in the world? Not because they argued, not because they yelled, but because they gave you that look. The sigh, the silence, the subtle withdrawal, as if to say, I thought I mattered more than that. That's guilt. And it's one of the most powerful tools of emotional control. See, a toxic woman doesn't always need to raise her voice to control you. Sometimes, all she has to do is make you feel guilty for choosing yourself. She doesn't forbid you from doing what matters to you. She just makes sure you feel bad for it. You cancel a plan to work on something important. She grows quiet, withdrawn. You take a solo weekend to reset your mind. She posts a passive-aggressive quote online about feeling abandoned. You start to wonder, am I being selfish? Am I letting her down? Before long, you're rearranging your life, your schedule, your priorities, not out of love, but out of obligation. That's not a partnership. That's emotional debt. And the worst part, you don't even realize it's happening until you've already crossed your own boundaries. You start shrinking just to keep the peace. You explain every decision before you even make it. You stop asking, what do I need? We'll start asking, how will she feel if I do this? Epictetus said, no man is free who is not master of himself. And when guilt becomes your compass, you're no longer steering your own ship. Here's the truth. Guilt is not love. Love invites you to grow, to breathe, to choose. Guilt corners you, it shrinks you down. The solution isn't confrontation, it's clarity. It's acting from reason, not fear. It's remembering who you are and that your time, your choices, and your peace are not things you should ever have to apologize for. If a woman loves you, she will want you to thrive, not comply. She won't weaponize your conscience just to get her way. So ask yourself, are you living for connection? Or are you living to avoid disappointment? Because there's a difference. And that difference could be the line between a relationship built on guilt and one built on freedom. Let me ask you something simple, but revealing. When was the last time you shared something heavy with someone, and instead of leaning in, they pulled away? Maybe it was subtle. They glanced at their phone, changed the topic, or nodded along without actually being there with you. It's easy to miss in the beginning, but over time, it leaves a mark. This is the fourth sign of a toxic woman. She lacks empathy. Now, I'm not talking about someone who's emotionally quiet or doesn't know what to say. I'm talking about a woman who simply isn't willing to feel what you feel, because to her, your emotions are inconvenient. You open up about a rough week, and she responds with a quick, yeah, I've had it worse. You express something vulnerable, and she redirects the conversation back to her own problems. Your pain becomes background noise to the narrative she wants to tell, and it hurts in a different kind of way, because in those moments when you actually need someone, you realize you're sitting next to a closed door. Empathy isn't about fixing anything. It's about presence. It's about a pause, a look, a moment where someone says, without words, I'm with you. I knew a man once, a tough, quiet guy. His wife passed away unexpectedly, and a few months later, he started seeing someone new. She was charming, warm on the surface, but when the grief showed up, when he needed silence, space, someone who could just sit with the weight of it, she got restless. She shifted in her seat. She changed the subject, and that's when he knew he wasn't healing with her. He was grieving around her. Stoic philosophy reminds us, accept things as they are, not as you wish they were. And here's the truth. If she can't sit with you in the storm, she's not meant to walk with you in the calm. Empathy isn't something you teach. It's something a person chooses every time they lean into your world instead of avoiding it. If you feel unseen, unheard, or emotionally alone while standing right next to someone, it's not just a rough patch, it's a red flag. You deserve a partner who listens with more than just her ears. One who doesn't rush you out of your sadness just because it's inconvenient. Someone who stays, not to fix, but to feel, with you. Because the right woman doesn't make you feel lonely when you're vulnerable. She makes you feel safe. And if that's missing, if your heart keeps getting tuned out, maybe it's time to listen to the silence and walk away from the noise. Let's talk about something that's easy to miss, because at first, it doesn't look like a red flag. In fact, it often looks shiny, exciting, even impressive, but over time, it drains the life out of you. It's this: she's obsessed with superficial things. I'm not talking about enjoying nice clothes or taking the occasional selfie. I'm talking about a woman whose entire sense of self-worth is built on how things appear, not how they actually are. She lives for the new handbag, the luxury car, the curated Instagram feed. Her mood rises and falls with the number of likes, the compliments, the external applause. At first, it feels harmless. She looks great. She's ambitious. Maybe a little high maintenance, but hey, that's part of her charm, right? But here's what happens next. You stop being you. You become part of her brand. You're not a partner anymore. You're a prop, something to show off, to impress, to prove that her life is on the next level. And it never ends, no matter how much you give, how much you earn, how much you achieve. It's never enough, because someone out there always has more, and she's always looking. What started as connection becomes a constant chase, quiet pressure to upgrade, perform, outdo, not for meaning, but for optics. The Stoics warned us about this centuries ago. Seneca said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor." Let that sink in, because a woman who measures life by status, by looks, by followers, will never be satisfied. She's chasing something external to fill something internal. And that's a race with no finish line. Meanwhile, you're losing your peace. You're working overtime, not just to build a life, but to maintain an image. But here's the truth that modern men forget. You are not here to be someone's accessory. You're here to live with purpose, with presence. And the right woman will care more about your character than your car. You value how you make people feel more than how you make them look. So if you find yourself constantly trying to impress someone who can't be impressed, step back. Ask yourself, are you building a life of meaning or a life of mirrors? Because mirrors break, but meaning lasts. And a man who values peace over praise, he's already won the only game that matters. Have you ever tried to have a calm, honest conversation, only to feel like you were on trial? You bring something up, gently, respectfully. Maybe it's a simple disagreement, a misunderstanding, or just a moment of miscommunication. But instead of clarity, you get deflection, emotion, blame. Suddenly, it's not about what happened. It's about how you said it. It's about your tone, your timing, your past mistakes, anything to shift the spotlight away from her own behavior. That's the sixth sign of a toxic woman. She can't admit when she's wrong. And I'm not talking about being a little stubborn. We've all had moments like that. This is deeper. This is a pattern where every conflict becomes a courtroom, where your perspective is always questioned and hers is always protected. You could lay out every fact, speak with kindness, with patience, even bring undeniable proof, and still, she twists the narrative. Why? Because, to her, being wrong doesn't just mean I made a mistake. It means I'm weak, I'm exposed, I'm less in control. So she fights to protect her ego, even if it means destroying the bridge between you and slowly. The relationship stops being a space for growth and becomes a game of defense. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If anyone can refute me, show me. Okay, I'm making a mistake, I'll gladly change. Because it's truth I seek." That's not just humility, that's strength. That's what real wisdom looks like. Because a relationship without accountability is a dead end. No matter how much love or chemistry exists, it can't evolve without the courage to be wrong. I've seen good men stay in relationships like this, not because they're weak, because they're hopeful. They think, maybe if I explain it better, maybe next time she'll understand. Okay, but here's the truth. You can't reason with someone who sees every disagreement as a threat, not a conversation. And the more you try, the more you sacrifice your own peace just to keep things calm. So let me ask you, are you connecting or are you competing? Are you growing or just trying to avoid the next argument? You deserve a partner who values truth over ego, who sees vulnerability not as defeat, but as intimacy. Someone who can say 3 simple words when they matter most. I was wrong. She can't offer that, not once, not ever. Then it's not love you're holding on to, it's a loop. And the only way to break it is to stop trying to win the argument and start choosing a life that doesn't require one. Let me say something you already go deep down. Time is the one currency you never get back. You can earn more money, you can rebuild your health, but your minutes, once they're gone for good. So when someone disrespects your time, especially someone close to you, they're not just being inconsiderate. They're revealing something much deeper. The 7th sign of a toxic woman is this. She disrespects your time. Maybe she's always late. 10 minutes becomes 30. 30 becomes, I'll be there soon. And soon becomes sorry. Something came up. Maybe she cancels plans at the last minute, or forgets them altogether. Or maybe it's subtler. She always expects you to wait, to adjust, to bend, as if your time is just more flexible than hers. At first, you brush it off. You tell yourself it's not a big deal. Life happens, but over time, something starts to shift. You're sitting in restaurants alone, pushing back meetings, skipping things that matter to you, just in case she decides to show up this time dot. And eventually, you realize you're not in a relationship. You're in a pattern of waiting. Seneca, one of the great Stoics, wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it, and often we waste it by giving it to people who don't value it." Here's what most men miss. When someone constantly disregards your time, they're not just being flaky, they're telling you exactly how much they value you. Because people protect what they respect. And if she truly respected you, she would show up. Not perfectly, not every time, but consistently. Because she'd care how her actions affect your day, your focus, your energy. Look, relationships are about flexibility, sure, but not about sacrifice without reciprocity. So, let me ask you, are you always the one waiting? You putting your life on hold, hoping she'll finally start treating your time like it matters? If so, it might be time to make a different choice. You don't need to fight. You don't need to explain. You just need to remember, your time is sacred. Spend it with people who treat it that way. Because the man who respects his minutes is the man who ends up with a life worth remembering. If there's one thing I hope you take away from this video, it's this. Don't stay because you're waiting for her to change, because most of the time she won't. Not because she's evil, not because she doesn't care, but because some people are so deeply rooted in who they are. That growth would require an identity shift they're simply not ready to make. And you've already done enough waiting. You've bent, you've explained, you've tried. That effort, that hope came from a good place. But at some point, choosing to stay isn't loyalty, okay? It's self-abandonment. So no, this isn't about walking away in anger. This isn't about proving a point or winning some moral battle. This is about something far quieter. It's far more powerful. Respect for your peace, for your path, okay? For the man you're still becoming. Because the truth is, you don't need a perfect relationship. You need an honest one. And honesty begins with you. It begins when you say, I will no longer sacrifice my values for temporary comfort. I will no longer explain my worth to someone who doesn't want to understand it. I will no longer shrink to fit into someone else's script. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And I'd add this, your life becomes shaped by the people you allow into it. So choose people who bring clarity. Choose people who respect your stillness. Choose people who don't need to be fixed in order for you to feel free. Because at the end of the day, a Stoic man doesn't need a savior. He doesn't need drama, permission, or validation. What he needs and what he protects is inner freedom. The kind of freedom that only comes from living in alignment with what he knows is true. So if any part of you knows it's time to move on, do it. Not out of bitterness, but out of reverence for the man you're becoming, because you deserve more than a life spent surviving someone else's chaos. You deserve depth. You deserve stillness. You deserve a life that feels like your own. If this spoke to something inside you, drop a comment below or just type, I'm choosing clarity. Because sometimes clarity begins with community.